Hey, stop everything you're doing right now because what I'm about to share with you could be the most important health information you've ever heard. I'm not saying that to be dramatic. I'm saying it because most people sitting where you are right now are unknowingly doing things every single day that are quietly feeding cancer cells in their body. And the most frightening part, your doctor probably hasn't mentioned a single one of them at your last checkup. I'm Dr. William, and I've spent over 3 decades researching cancer, angiogenesis, and how the human body either fights disease or surrenders to it. What I've discovered, and what many in the conventional medical establishment have been slow to acknowledge, is that cancer is not just bad luck. It is in large part a lifestyle disease, and that means it can be influenced, slowed, and in many cases prevented by the choices you make before breakfast, during lunch, and right before bed. A landmark study published by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health tracked over 135,000 adults for 26 years and found that nearly 42% of all cancer cases in the United States are directly attributable to modifiable lifestyle risk factors, 42%. That means nearly half of all cancer diagnoses could potentially be prevented. Let that number sink in for a moment. Now, before I walk you through today's list, I want to tease something for you because habit number 2 on our list today is one that almost every single person over the age of 65 is doing, probably tonight, and it has been directly linked to a 36% increase in colorectal cancer risk. Most people have no idea. Stay with me because this one will genuinely surprise you. Before we dive in, I want to ask you something personal. Leave a comment below and tell me, how old are you? And have you ever had a close family member diagnosed with cancer? I read every single comment on this channel, and your answer helps me understand exactly what information serves you best. This community matters to me deeply, and I never want you to feel like you're navigating your health alone. Now we're counting down from 6 to 1, ranked from important to absolutely critical. Let's begin. Coming in at number 6, and this one is hiding in plain sight in almost every kitchen in America, is eating food heated in plastic containers. This may sound minor, but the science is anything but. When plastic containers, even those labeled microwave safe, are heated, they release a class of chemicals called phthalates and bisphenols into your food. These are endocrine disrupting compounds, meaning they mimic and interfere with your body's natural hormones. And here's why this is especially dangerous for people over 60. Your hormonal regulatory systems are already under strain from natural aging. After the age of 65, your liver's ability to neutralize and process toxins decreases by nearly 30%, according to research from the National Institute on Aging. That means chemical exposures that a 35-year-old might metabolize and clear relatively efficiently are accumulating in your body at a much higher rate. A study from NYU Langone Health found that individuals with the highest phthalate exposure had significantly elevated markers of cellular oxidative stress, which is essentially the internal rust that damages DNA and creates the conditions where cancer can take root. The research linked high phthalate levels to increased risk of breast cancer, prostate cancer, and thyroid malignancy. The fix is simple and costs you nothing. Transfer your food to a glass or ceramic dish before microwaving. Never heat anything in a plastic takeout container, plastic wrap, or styrofoam. Even plastic water bottles left in a hot car are a concern. Heat accelerates chemical leaching dramatically. Pair this habit with eating more cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts, which contain compounds called glucosinolates that actively help your liver clear these chemicals from your bloodstream. And speaking of what you're eating, that brings us perfectly to number 5. Number 5 is something that has been aggressively marketed as a health food for decades, and yet the research tells a very different story. I'm talking about processed vegetable and seed oils, canola oil, soybean oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, the kind sitting in nearly every pantry in the country. These oils are extraordinarily high in omega-6 fatty acids. Now, your body needs some omega-6, but here's the problem. The ideal ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids in the human diet should be roughly 4 to 1. In the modern American diet, that ratio has ballooned to somewhere between 20 to 1 and 40 to 1. Researchers at the University of California, San Diego published findings showing that this severe imbalance triggers chronic systemic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is not just uncomfortable, it is the biological environment in which cancer thrives. Think of it like this. Imagine your bloodstream as a river. Healthy, balanced fats keep that river clean and flowing. But when you flood it with processed seed oils, you're essentially pouring industrial sludge into the water. Every cell downstream, including your immune cells, the very soldiers your body uses to detect and destroy early cancer cells, gets coated and impaired. For people over 70, this matters even more. Aging bodies already produce higher baseline levels of inflammatory compounds called cytokines. Adding a diet saturated in pro-inflammatory oils is like pouring gasoline on a fire that's already burning. The practical change is straightforward. Cook with extra virgin olive oil, which is rich in oleocanthal, a compound shown in Temple University research to destroy cancer cells within 30 minutes of contact. Use avocado oil for high heat cooking. Throw away the vegetable oil. It is not health food. Pair your olive oil with a small handful of walnuts. The omega-3s in walnuts directly counterbalance the inflammatory cascade these seed oils create. Now we're moving into the habits that are truly shocking, and number 4 involves something you do every single night. Number 4 is eating dinner late, specifically within 3 hours of going to sleep. I want to introduce you to Margaret, a 71-year-old retired school teacher from Columbus, Ohio. Margaret came to one of our wellness seminars 2 years ago. She was frustrated. She exercised 3 times a week. She ate what she thought was a healthy diet, and yet her inflammatory markers and blood sugar numbers were climbing steadily. When I asked her about her evening habits, she told me she rarely ate dinner before 9 p.m. She'd watch the news, snack a little, and be in bed by 11. She had no idea that this single habit was quietly sabotaging everything else she was doing right. Here's the science. When you eat close to bedtime, your body is flooded with insulin and glucose at the exact moment it should be entering a state of cellular repair. During deep sleep, your body activates a process called autophagy, which is essentially your cell's internal housekeeping system identifying and dismantling damaged or precancerous cells. A study from the Barcelona Institute for Global Health, following over 2,000 cancer patients, found that people who ate dinner before 9 p.m. and observed a 2-hour gap before sleeping had a 20% lower risk of both breast and prostate cancer, compared to those who ate late, 20% just from meal timing alone. After the age of 65, your circadian biology, the internal clock governing every metabolic process in your body, becomes less robust and more sensitive to disruption. Late eating doesn't just affect blood sugar, it suppresses melatonin, impairs your immune surveillance, and increases cortisol, which directly feeds tumor-promoting inflammation. The prescription here is to aim for your last meal by 6:30 or 7 p.m. at the latest. If you're genuinely hungry later, a small handful of berries or a few walnut halves won't disrupt the process. Pair this habit with a short 10-minute walk after dinner. Research from Stanford shows this alone can reduce post-meal blood glucose spikes by up to 22%. If you're finding this information valuable, and I genuinely hope you are, this is a perfect moment to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. Every time you engage with this content, it helps this channel reach more seniors who need to hear this information. I am on a mission to make sure no one has to face these diagnoses without the knowledge to fight back. Now let's keep going, because the next 3 items are the most critical of everything I'll share today. Number 3 involves something that billions of people do every morning, and it has been hiding its cancer-promoting potential behind decades of clever marketing. Number 3 is drinking coffee and tea from single-use paper cups with plastic-lined interiors, or worse, polystyrene foam cups. Now, I want to be clear. The coffee or tea itself is not the problem. In fact, high quality black coffee and green tea are among the most powerful anti cancer beverages known to science. The problem is the container. Nearly all disposable paper cups used at coffee chains and diners are lined with a thin layer of polyethylene plastic to prevent leakage. When hot liquid is poured into these cups, micro and nanoplastics shed directly into your drink. A study from the Indian Institute of Technology found that a single hot beverage in a plastic-lined paper cup exposes the drinker to approximately 25,000 microscopic plastic particles. These particles, once ingested, have been shown in research from the University of Vienna to penetrate cell membranes, accumulate in organ tissue, and trigger inflammatory gene expression, the precise molecular signature associated with cancer initiation. For seniors specifically, the concern is amplified because after the age of 70, your gut lining becomes more permeable, a phenomenon sometimes called leaky gut, meaning these particles are absorbed into your bloodstream at a higher rate than they would be in a younger person. The solution is beautiful in its simplicity. Carry a stainless steel or glass travel mug. It costs less than $10 and eliminates this exposure entirely. Brew your coffee or steep your green tea at home, pour it into your own container, and you've removed a daily cancer risk with one small decision. Pair your green tea specifically with a small amount of black pepper. Research from the University of Michigan shows that piperine and black pepper increases the bioavailability of EGCG, green tea's primary anti-cancer compound, by up to 20 times. Now we are in the territory that I consider genuinely urgent. Number 2 is the one I teased at the very beginning of this video, and I promise it's going to change the way you think about your evenings forever. Number 2 is sitting for more than 8 hours a day, particularly sitting immediately after meals and sitting in dim or no light during evening hours. I want to tell you about Robert, a 68-year-old former accountant from Phoenix, Arizona. Robert retired 5 years ago and embraced what he thought was a well-deserved rest. He sat through breakfast, drove to run errands, sat through lunch, watched television from noon until bedtime. He felt relaxed. He felt like he'd earned it. Then came the colonoscopy that found 3 precancerous polyps and an early-stage colorectal tumor. Robert was devastated. He thought retirement was supposed to be his reward. What Robert didn't know, and what most people don't know, is that prolonged sedentary behavior is not simply the absence of exercise. It is an active, independent cancer risk factor. A comprehensive meta-analysis published in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute, analyzing data from over 4 million adults, found that prolonged sitting was associated with a 24% increased risk of colorectal cancer, a 32% increased risk of endometrial cancer, and a 21% increased risk of lung cancer, independent of whether the person exercised regularly. Independent, meaning even if you go for a morning walk, if you sit for 8+ hours afterward, your cancer risk remains significantly elevated. Here is why this is so damaging at the cellular level. When you sit for extended periods, your lymphatic system, which is essentially your body's internal sewage network responsible for flushing out damaged cells and immune waste, nearly stops circulating. Unlike your blood, which has the heart to pump it, lymph fluid moves only through muscle contractions. Prolonged stillness turns this system stagnant. Simultaneously, insulin sensitivity plummets, blood glucose rises, and inflammatory markers spike, all within just 90 minutes of unbroken sitting. For people over 65, there is an additional and very serious compounding factor. Your natural killer cell activity, the immune cells specifically tasked with identifying and destroying cancer cells before they can form tumors, declines by approximately 40% with age-related physical deconditioning. Sedentary behavior accelerates this decline dramatically. Robert began a simple protocol after his surgery. Every 45 minutes, he stood up and walked for 5 minutes to the kitchen around the block. It didn't matter. He began using a light therapy lamp in the evenings to support his circadian rhythm. Within 8 months, his inflammatory markers dropped by nearly half, and his oncologist was genuinely surprised. He is now 4 years cancer free. The practical application is this: set a timer on your phone for every 45 to 50 minutes during the day. When it goes off, stand up and move for 5 minutes, walk. Do gentle stretches, march in place. Pair this with morning sunlight exposure for 20 minutes, which regulates your cortisol and melatonin cycle and directly enhances natural killer cell production. This single two-part habit, breaking up sitting and getting morning light, may be the most powerful free cancer prevention tool available to you. And now we arrive at number one, the habit that I believe, based on everything I have seen in research and in clinical practice, represents the single greatest modifiable cancer risk for adults over the age of 60. It is something that is deeply normalized, socially celebrated, and defended aggressively despite overwhelming evidence. I'm talking about chronic habitual consumption of ultra-processed foods, not junk food, not fast food. I mean the broader category of ultra-processed products, packaged bread, flavored yogurts, breakfast cereals, deli meats, frozen meals, protein bars, flavored crackers, diet sodas, and virtually anything that contains more than 5 ingredients and includes additives you cannot pronounce. The NOVA classification system, developed by researchers at the University of Sao Paulo, has categorized these foods and sparked one of the most important bodies of nutritional cancer research in the last 2 decades. A major study published in the BMJ following over 100,000 adults found that a 10% increase in the proportion of ultra-processed foods in a person's diet was associated with a significant increase in overall cancer risk, particularly breast cancer, which rose by 11%, and a range of gastrointestinal cancers. The mechanisms are multiple and deeply alarming. Ultra-processed foods are engineered to disrupt your gut microbiome, the 39 trillion bacteria living in your intestines that serve as your first line of immune defense. After the age of 60, your microbiome diversity naturally begins to decline, reducing your body's ability to produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which directly suppress tumor growth in the colon. Ultra-processed foods accelerate this collapse dramatically. They contain emulsifiers like carrageenan and polysorbate 80 that breach the gut lining, releasing bacterial endotoxins into the bloodstream, triggering the chronic low-grade inflammation that sits at the root of virtually every cancer type. Furthermore, these foods create metabolic chaos. They spike blood glucose rapidly, triggering insulin surges that elevate IGF-1 insulin-like growth factor 1, a hormone that, when chronically elevated, has been shown in research from Johns Hopkins University to directly stimulate the proliferation of cancer cells across multiple tissues, including the breast, prostate, and colon. After the age of 75, your body loses roughly 35% of its capacity to regulate inflammatory gene expression. Every bag of chips, every packaged muffin, every diet soda is sending a signal through your biology that says grow, divide, inflame, and cancer, which is fundamentally a disease of uncontrolled cell growth, listens. The transformation here is about crowding out rather than white-knuckling deprivation. Begin every single meal with a whole food, a piece of fruit, a handful of berries, a cup of leafy greens. Research from the Salk Institute shows that polyphenols from whole plant foods directly compete with and inhibit the inflammatory pathways that ultra-processed foods activate. Add fermented foods, plain yogurt with live cultures, kimchi, kefir 3 to 4 times per week to actively rebuild your microbiome. Pair a diet shift away from ultra-processed foods with a daily serving of fatty fish like sardines or salmon, whose omega-3 content directly counteracts the pro-inflammatory signaling these foods generate. And please read labels. If a product has more than 5 ingredients and includes words you wouldn't find in your grandmother's kitchen, put it back. All of the studies and scientific references I've discussed today are linked in the description below. I always want you to be able to verify what I share with you. Here is what I need you to hear before you go. You are not powerless. I don't care if you are 62 or 82. The biology of cellular repair does not have an expiration date. The choices you make starting today, even small ones, change the environment inside your body. They shift the balance away from disease and toward protection. I have watched patients in their late 70s reverse decades of damage by making targeted, consistent changes to their daily habits. I have seen people told their markers were worsening walk back into their doctor's office with results that defied expectation. That is not magic. That is the profound, undeniable responsiveness of the human body when you stop fighting against it and start working with it. Your independence, your vitality, your ability to be present for the people who love you, none of that is fixed. It is not determined by your genes or your past. It is being written right now in every meal you eat, every hour you move, and every night you choose to protect your sleep. It is never too late. I believe that with every fiber of my professional conviction. If this video brought you value, if even one thing here made you pause and think differently, please subscribe to this channel and share this with someone you love. Hit the notification bell so you never miss what we publish here, because every week I bring you the kind of information that can genuinely add years to your life. And now I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me which one of these 6 habits are you going to change first. I read every single comment, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Let's keep this conversation going, because the best medicine in the world is knowledge, and you deserve every last drop of it.